Okay, welcome back. You made it this far. This is just me going into the software manager, which is how you can download software without having to actually download it from the internet. You launch this and then type in what it is you're looking for. In this case, Steam. And there's a couple different versions. Typically there's a flat pack version and then a system version. Without getting into the weeds, the system version is usually smaller in size, usually quicker to install. You usually want to use that. Alright, while Steam is updating, I'm going to install something called Game Mode and something called Proton Up. Basically, Game Mode is a way of setting your CPU priorities so that when you're playing a game, the Linux OS prioritizes your video game over everything else. It's like a performance boosting aid. Proton is a compatibility layer to let you play games that were meant for Windows inside of Linux. Sometimes the version that Steam gives you isn't new enough to play the game you're trying to play, and so the community will make their own patches or Proton, and that's what this tool does. It lets you download whatever version you may want, and then you can use whatever version you've downloaded on your game. And if that doesn't work, you can use a different version until you find that one that works. So what I'm going to do right now is actually go to Days Gone, and I'm actually going to install it. But first, I'm going to go to Steam and actually pick the Proton version I want to use for this. And you're going to see that when I go to the Proton version, the newest one that I downloaded did not show up here. And that's just because Steam was already open when I started downloading it. So if I just close Steam, reopen it, we'll see the new version show up when I go back to that list. Okay, I'm restarting Steam. When we go back into the settings, we should see the new Proton, the 749 that I downloaded and installed. So just go to Steam Play, click it. It's already shown up there. Put the little checkbox next to it. Click OK. So now, let's just actually install a game. We'll install Days Gone, because I'm actually going to play this later. So we'll install this. While it's going, we'll install Heroic. And what Heroic is, it's the Linux version of the Epic Game Store and the GOG Store, which are available on Windows. But it's one tool that incorporates both stores, so we'll get that installed so I get access to both of those libraries that I've bought games through. With that installed, we'll go back to the software manager. We're going to install Dolphin, which is a GameCube emulator. It will also emulate Wii, the Nintendo Wii. and I'm gonna go grab the PS3 emulator, but for that I actually have to go get that from a website because I don't think that's in the software center yet, or if it is, I don't know how to find it. So we're gonna download this, and basically it's just a one file install. You just have to right click it, make it executable, and then the next time you want to use it, you just double click it and it will launch just like any Windows program. But we also have to go download the official Sony firmware in order to make this work, and I'm going to show you that here in just a moment as well. Now, while I wait for that, let's go ahead and get the PS2 emulator as well. PCSX2. If you've seen it on Windows, it works the same way in Linux, but you install it, and then through the GUI you choose where your BIOS is, because you're going to need one of those to play PS2 games. And then you tell it where your game folder is. Same thing with DuckStation, which is a PlayStation 1 emulator, and you're going to see that when these apps launch in the next video, they all pretty much look almost the same. They're the same user interface, the same layout. It's kind of neat, kind of uniform. And this video, as you can see, is kind of all over the place, so I apologize for that. I was just frantically just trying to get all of this stuff done before stuff started happening around my house. But here we are back at Heroic. I've gone ahead and logged in, and now I have access to a bunch of my games here. I'm not sure why The Witcher shows up twice, but it does. But yeah, I'll have access to this and my GOG games after I log in through my GOG account. But I'm going to blur that on the screen. So now I've got logged in through GOG or GOG and Epic Games, so I have access to more games that I've bought, because I've bought games through both stores before. And you'll see it sometimes games cross over. You'll see them twice, once for the Epic store, one for the GOG or the GOG store. You're going to see a couple titles that say they're not compatible. That's because they're distributed by EA, and there's not an EA launcher available that I know of for this. And if there is, chances are these games are not available due to the online connectivity. So that's set up for the moment. We're going to head back over to the PlayStation website, or the PCSX3 website. We're going to go download the official Sony firmware from Sony themselves to make the PS3 emulator work. In video 3, I'm actually going to use it to play the Simpsons video game, which I actually ripped using my own PS3. I copied it to the hard drive, from the hard drive to a flash drive, from the flash drive to my computer. And yeah, it was a bit of a chore, but if you want to do it the right way, that's the best way to do it. And so as you can see, you just go to the file button, install PS3 firmware, click on the pup file that you downloaded, let it install. You'll see it compile these new modules. That's normal, happens on Windows as well. After this is done, you can then point the thing to wherever it is you have your video game saved, and you'll see the list populate. And you will notice later with the DOLPHIN GameCube emulator, its interface looks real similar to this one. I don't know why, because the PS1 and PS2 interfaces look so much like each other. I'm not sure why the PS3 interface looks like the looks like the GameCube emulator, but it does, so who cares? It works, and it works pretty well. So, back at this file, add games, and then you navigate to wherever it is that you have these things stored on. I put mine on my external Samsung drive, and so in just a moment we'll see that, and you'll see it labeled, and actually my PlayStation actually labeled it that way. And there's the game itself. In video 3 I'll actually play it, let you see what it looks like, but not now. This is me trying to install the controller or configure it. I couldn't figure out what the thing was programmed as or what kind of input it was. In Windows it's called an X11 input or X input. On here it's under the EV or ENDV. It's the last item in the list underneath the word handlers, and it took me a few moments to figure that out, but I did. And then once I figured that out, there's like an auto map that you can do, and it will basically just auto map this thing the way a regular PS3 controller would be. Like, you don't have to go in and set every little button yourself, it just does it for you. The PS2, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to tell it where to find the video games I've got saved. We're going to tell it where to find the BIOS files. Basically, BIOS is similar to firmware. It tells the emulator how to behave and how to read the games you have saved. I didn't know this at the time, but for most of these things in video 3, you're going to see that as I launch the emulators and play the actual games, I have to do this again. Not sure why. I do think it did save after the second time. Maybe it was just a first launch thing. Maybe I didn't save something. I don't know. But minor inconvenience that I'll get over. Here comes all of our games. As it's scanning the folder, it's finding our games that we've got in there. Video 3, you'll actually see me test some of these. It found most of the video game box art, but not all of it. Yeah, you can always set this stuff manually later. But yeah, now you just choose the BIOS. And now you'll be able to actually play the games. Otherwise, when you boot the game, the emulator will tell you that, hey, you need to choose a BIOS. And we need to set the resolution in 1080p because that's what I'm recording on. So we'll get this done, and we'll close that out. It's the same thing with Dolphin, the GameCube emulator. You can enable cheats, but you actually have to then download them. But you just want to pick where you have your GameCube game saved. Select that. You'll see the list pop up or populate. Then you want to do the same thing as we did earlier. You want to go to the controller section. Click it. Choose your game controller, which I'm using an Xbox 360 controller, just because I have lots of them. And then from there, you map the buttons to it, click save, and that's pretty much it for the GameCube. Dolphin is one of the quickest, easiest, fastest ones to actually set up, and it works really well. I played Resident Evil 3, the intro to it, and I sucked at it because I haven't played it in 20 years. But I'll play some other things just so that you can get an idea of how well it works inside of Linux Mint. For anybody who's actually already used Linux Mint, this is all news to you. You already know it works as well as it does in Windows. Again, this guide is just simply how easy it is to install without touching a terminal, get things going, and not freak out like a millionaire tech YouTuber who couldn't figure out how to get things done. Okay, DuckStation, the PlayStation 1 emulator. Same thing as all the others. You want to add a game directory, let it scan it. You want to add a BIOS directory, let it scan it, and then you want to set your inputs on your controller. And this one actually has an auto mapper, which is really easy. But here it is, end of the video. We got a lot of systems up and going, or we will have when you see the next video. Installed a bunch of things. I did not install the PPSSPP emulator. I should have, I forgot to. That one is done the same way. Go to the go to the software center, install it, set your game folder, let it scan it, have it detected. If you saw me set up all these other emulators, PPSSPP, done the exact same way. I also went to install and forgot a Dreamcast. They're called REDREAM. I actually paid for a license. It was only $5, and you don't really need it. It just enables you to play games at higher resolutions than 1080p. But I bought it to support. I may go ahead and install that in the next video and just show me installing it there, showcase it there as well, because SEGA Dreamcast rules.